Edna. He just said that
I'd like to call the May 17th, 2021 Wilson School Board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Here.
Mrs. Casper?
Here.
Dr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mrs. Cocker?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Mr. Negrini?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
And Mr. Hart.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
to the
To
flag
the flag
of the
of
United
the
States
United States of America,
America,
And to
the
republic
for which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
Mr. Moravich, we will turn it over to you.
We became aware that an individual this evening was planning to attend the meeting, the public meeting, and would not be complying with the current district masking policy because we are still under the directive of the health and safety plan that was approved by the board and the Department of Health guidelines that school entities can continue to adhere to masking requirements. We've decided to hold this evening's meeting totally virtually. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we have 3 people with public comment tonight. Is that right, Mrs. Carroll?
That is right.
Mrs. Cocker, are you prepared to read those?
I am. I have access to 2 of those, Mrs. Carroll. Is one person in going to be live for the comments?
No, there should be 3.
Okay. I'll start with the 2 that I have. The topic of comment is for cafeteria workers' raises. It is from Ms. Gladys Barks. The comment is, I can't imagine anyone thinking it is justifiable to give raises because one school has the availability to sell snacks and another does not. This year has been a challenge and everyone has had to work harder, including those working at the elementary schools. To even consider this is an insult to all the extra over and above work each one put out to make sure all the children were cared for. The next comment, same topic, is from Ms. Vicky Suglia. My name is Vicky Suglia. I'm the food service manager at Spring Ridge Elementary. I've been a Wilson employee for 19 years. I've also been proud to be part of the Wilson. I've always been proud to be part of the Wilson School District, and I've always enjoyed the work I do here. I especially love knowing that all of my Spring Ridge kiddos are well fed and happy. My small staff and I have organized lunchtime dance parties, brought in special guests, introduced new foods by having try days, brought Nobody Sits Alone Day to our cafeteria, and so much more, all pre-COVID, of course. This school year has been very different. We have had our staff cut in half while the work expectations of us has doubled. We've gone this entire year with only 3 of us procuring, preparing, packaging, and delivering to the classrooms up to 375 meals a day. We show up every morning to do the most underpaid and underappreciated job in the district. But we still show up every day. The reason I'm sharing all of this is because I've learned that there will be a motion before the board on Monday to approve pay increases for some of the food service department, but not all of us. Our new director, Sarah Jin, informed the elementary school managers yesterday that she's asking the board to approve pay increases for the food service staff who worked in the secondary buildings, but not for any of the elementary staff. Our kitchen, Spring Ridge, is the only kitchen in the district that worked this year with only 3 people. Even the other elementary kitchens all worked with more staff than we had. We also were recently given the task of preparing lunches for Berkshire Heights preschoolers. And instead of my staff complaining about the added work at the most understaffed kitchen, we took it as a challenge and we got it done. We have seen the list of names and the proposed increases. There are people on the list who have worked for the district up to 10 years less than I have. They're doing the same job I am, same job title, and they will be making over $2 an hour more than me. Same title, same work, less years of service and dedication. So how do they deserve to earn over $2 an hour more than I earn. Elementary food service staff deserves the same respect, appreciation, and wages as the rest of the department. We all do the same work. We've worked our hearts out this year. We're worn out, and now finding out that we are less valuable to the department just because we work in the elementary buildings instead of the secondary buildings is disheartening. Sorry, 1 second. Don't take the time off of first. Learning that our leader thinks it's okay to treat us so unfairly is a crushing blow to our morale. I'm not sure how anyone can think that this is okay. I'm asking you on behalf of our entire elementary food service team to please consider the dedication and well-being of the entire department before casting your vote on this unfair motion. Thank you for listening. Okay, let me see if I have access to the third one. Oh, yes, I do. Sorry about that. Same topic. This says secondary food service. Good evening and thank you for your time. My name is Sharon DiBiase, and I work for the food service department at Spring Ridge Elementary. Our new director, Sarah Ginn, stopped by on Friday to speak with our manager about the director's proposal to give wage increase to secondary managers, cooks, and food service workers. She told her that the elementary staff would be excluded from these increases. I find this completely unfair. I am Serve Safe certified because our interim director at the time, Carol Gilbert, asked for volunteers to become certified. So I did it. And even though I'm certified, while most other food service workers are not, I get nothing extra for that. I also took manager training and get nothing for that. I am able and willing to step in for my manager when she is not in the kitchen. Not many other food service workers can say that. I've seen the list of people who Sarah wants wage increases for, and most have been working for the district less years than me and are not Serve Safe certified or trained to step in to run a kitchen. So I don't understand how she thinks it's justifiable to give them raises and not me. With the increases she is proposing, there is plenty of money to spread that out evenly among all her staff. This is unfair, and I'm hoping you can take this into consideration before approving it. Thank you.
Thank you. We met in executive session after last board meeting and tonight to discuss personnel issues and discussions on real estate. We now have presentation on the 2021-2022 proposed final budget fund. Schlossman?
Okay, can everyone hear me? Can someone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, well, I just want to start by having a lot of people to thank as we do this every year. It takes a lot of people to build this budget. So I do want to thank so many people for contributing to this process again this year. First of all, Dr. Fadley, our superintendent, the entire district leadership team, the finance committee chairs of the board, the entire board, the administration, the professional staff who serve as budget managers, all contribute into my business office staff. I just want to thank everybody for their contributions to this process. Isn't this forwarding? So for some reason, this isn't forwarding for me. There we go. All right. So we're going to start with just defining what our budget is designed to do. This budget is designed to support the district's education plan, to maintain our district facilities, to honor our district obligations, and to provide fiscal accountability to all of our stakeholders. This is a rendition of our budget calendar. We start basically in October and we work our way through to today, in which we are putting the proposed final budget up for adoption. And we still have then 30 days until June to have the final budget adoption. So we're going to start with looking at the student population changes and trends for the students that we serve here at Wilson. So this chart is our total district student enrollment. Over the last 5 years, we've increased by 247 students, or we had a 4.1% growth. Our low-income student population has also grown the last 5 years, 347 students, or a 19.6% growth. And there is a notation as to what the qualifications are for being considered a low-income student. You can see that in the last 5 years, we're at the highest point as a percentage of our population at 34% of low-income student population. Our special education student population over the last 5 years has grown as well, 181 students, or 17.7% growth. This is the breakdown in a pie chart showing that our special education enrollment is approximately 19%, with our non-special education enrollment at 76%, with a 5% gifted population. So we're going to talk now about the numbers and how our budget is built to serve the students that we just reviewed. So the leftmost column shows the preliminary budget that was originally approved by the school board in February. The green column shows budget changes and various information that we received over the last several months. To highlight our yellow column, which is the proposed final budget that is up for vote tonight. So it shows our total revenues at $114.9 million, total expenditures at $119.6 million, with a budgeted deficit of $4.7 million. Budgetary reserve is included in those expenditures. We have historically not used that reserve, thankfully. So we have a budget deficit to cover of $3.7 million. You can see on the right that our revenues over last year are increased by $3.9 million, or 3.5%, and our expenditures have increased $4.5 million, or 3.9%. So if we dive deeper into the expenditures, we have salaries and benefits of $91 million, other non-personnel costs of $16.1 million, debt service of $10.9 million. We do have a new line item, a phase-in for extra costs related to a potential feasibility study phase 2 project, and of course our budgetary reserve, which we spoke about. So you can see the different line items there on the right. The salaries and benefits have increased $4.1 million, or 4.7%, with some slight changes in the other categories. So our pie chart here of total expenditures, salaries and benefits equate to 76% of our total expenditure budget, with non-personnel at 13%, debt service at 9%, and our budgetary reserve and feasibility phase-in at 1% each. Our personnel costs, just to kind of talk about some clarifications in those increases, we did sign a contract with the Wilson Education Association during this year. It's a 2-year contract for next year and the year after, for an average of 3% increases in salaries. We did have additional staffing included in this budget to address growth and special areas of need to serve our student population. And we worked very hard to net those additions against restructuring and removal of certain vacant support staff positions that helped us kind of net out. We also offered an early retirement incentive plan for the Wilson Education Association members and administration. And we had 13 individuals qualify for that plan for potential savings based on replacements of $600,000. Also included in our personnel costs is our PSERS increase. Year over year for budget is $1.1 million increase. The rate went up slightly again this year, so we're at 34.94% for 21-22. Our medical insurance premium rates, we are a member of the Berks Health Trust. There was thankfully no increase in the rates over the prior year. We also, as part of the WEA contract, had an increased contribution from our teachers and administrative employees of 0.5%. So those folks now contribute 13.5%, which helped the district by about $50,000. Our debt service repayment is a little lower this year. Now we're going to be at the steady $10.9 million, which we'll see in a second. Other non-personnel costs that did increase that we had to net it against other decreases in building and central budgets were our third-party cyber charter tuition is up. We have to adjust to that change that happened this year. Hopefully, it won't be as populated and the students will come back to Wilson. And we also have increased our Wilson Virtual Academy as well for potential changes in educational delivery as we saw this year. And we also have the phase in for the feasibility study phase 2, which is potentially in the future for the district. So here's just a chart of the salaries and benefits budget. It is 10 years of just showing how this has grown by salaries and benefits. So the blue bar is salaries, the red bar is benefits. So we start at $55.6 million in total in 12-13, and our proposed final budget is at $91 million. So the interesting point here is that salaries have grown about 40%, benefits have grown 123%, and mostly because of the PSERS factor in there. So here is just the depiction of the PSER contribution rates. You can see the sharp incline in the first few years there. This is 11 years of actual rates, and then there's 6 years of projections that have gone out. It flatlines, but it's still going up. So we'll have to see how that comes about as the years go. Here is a chart of the Wilson School District employer contribution dollars. So you can see the increase there over the 11 years, about 456%. Outstanding debt service. So in the leftmost column is our current debt service. We have about 7 more years. The board did approve and authorize a bond issue of $45 million to address the phase 1 feasibility study of the high school renovations and the fields. So that adds about additional 5 years for a 12-year pay down, and you can see the increase there. Our charter school tuition, you can see the projected column there for 2021, significantly higher than the previous year due to the COVID epidemic, and much higher than we had originally budgeted. We are bringing that back down slightly for next year, hoping to get some of those families back to Wilson. Special education instructional costs, you can see here, these bars in total represent total instructional costs. Those are the 1,200 functions in the school district chart of accounts. So you can see that for this year, included in this budget for tonight, we're at the rightmost column, and that would be hitting about $20 million. This chart, however, shows more of the comprehensive nature of the special education budget, which includes the support services that go along with special education instruction. And the source of this information is a PDE schedule that the district files every year as part of the year-end reporting processes. So what's interesting about this chart is that you can see when we looked at the previous slide, it was just instruction. The orange portion adds this special support services onto that. So for 12-13, we were at a total of $13.9 million of cost, and federal and state funding is the dark blue portion, which was 24% of that, or $3.4 million. And then on the rightmost column in 1920, we're at $22.3 million of total costs, and the federal and state portion is now pretty flatlined over those years at 18%, only $4 million of funding. So the federal and state funding actually increased only $600,000 over these 8 years shown, but the total cost increased $8.4 million. So you can see the burden that is on the local taxpayer regarding this particular area. And my screen is not forwarding, and I apologize for that. I'm not sure why.
Click on your slide and then it should forward.
Thank you. Always good to have an IT expert when you're doing a presentation. This chart shows where Wilson falls as throughout the county when it comes to special education costs. This is instructional only, as a percentage of our operating expenses. So we're right in the middle, a little lower than average at 17.41% of our total operating budget. So to look at revenues a little bit closer, we have this broken down between local, state, federal, and other. Again, the yellow column is where we are at tonight with $114.9 million. We can see the increase over the prior year has really flipped between the local and the other. So the local revenues we're recovering through real estate tax increase and some other very strong trends in our local economy, which is really promising. And the decrease of $7.1 million in the other was because last year we had a scoop refunding that actually saved the district a couple $100,000 at the end of the day to kind of free up some of our cash and budget, not knowing what this year was going to look like. Here's our pie chart of our breakdown for Wilson. Local revenues represent 72% of our revenues. State is 23%, federal's 5%. So here's just a breakdown of some key local revenue components. The current real estate tax is at $70 million. That includes a real estate tax millage increase of adjusted Act 1 index plus special ed exceptions, which we'll look at in a minute. You can see that if you look at the prior year revenues, the trends are going up based on what we're realizing for this year. So that's a really good trend that our economy is bouncing back from the COVID-19 epidemic. Here's a chart of real estate growth over the last 5 years. The hit last July of 2020 was one of our larger taxpayers had an assessment appeal in which their assessment was significantly decreased, which actually overall decreased the district's assessment in total. But you can see through this March, we have rebounded with some other growth. So that's a good trend. This is our millage rate that's included in this budget and the impact on different assessed values. So the yellow column at the top is showing a proposed millage of 27.66 mils, or a 1.4 mil increase, which is 5.3%. As you recall, last year we had a 0 millage increase as we were sensitive to the fact that we were in the throes of the pandemic, not quite knowing what our local economy was going to look like. On the bottom of this chart, you can see different assessed home values. This year, the median value for Wilson is $121,000. So this increase in taxes would be an annual increase on that particular home value of $169, $14.12 a month, on a total tax bill of $3,347. This is just some historical millage rates. You can see we did go to exception in the 5 years that I'm showing there, 07, 08 to 11, 12. And that was during the construction of West Middle School. This is the Independent Fiscal Office forecast for Act 1 base index. So the blue line was last year's forecast. The green line that extends into the out years is the updated index, which is much higher in 22, 23, 23, 24, and then starts to come down in the out years. This slide shows the effect of millage rate and the compounding effect of that. So what this is showing here is 5 years, all things being equal when it comes to assessment growth and the use of the adjusted Act 1 index in the 4 out years. But the difference between using the exception this year for special education costs and not using the exception. And you can see in this year alone, it would be a $1.1 million difference cumulative over 5 years. Everything else being equal in the next 4 years would be a $6.1 million difference. Where does that sit, Wilson, in the county when it comes to millage rate? So on the left, you can see where we were last year. We were second to last, with Reading being on the lowest millage rate. This year, with our increase of 5.3%, we are at number 15. There are still 3 schools who haven't reported what their proposed final budget millage looks like, but this is the latest data that I had. So state subsidies are assumed to be flat. We haven't heard anything from the state since the governor announced some plans that did not yet come to fruition, with some slight changes in our FICA and PSERS subsidies. Federal revenues are up because of the fact that we were notified of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding. So here's a chart that shows the funding that we have been slated to receive, total of $8.7 million. That can be spread for different years with the ending date of September of 25 for ESSER 3. So this is the current proposed spread of that money and the various funding sources that we're receiving it from or have received it from. This is the same numbers, but just a different look at how we're going to utilize that money, at least plan to at this point. We did actually use $59,000 last year. We're looking to use about 2.1 this year, with the highest of 4.2 next year, and then wean ourselves off of this. This is a fund balance projection at break even. So we did project our budget a loss for this year. However, the way the numbers are coming in, we're looking at anywhere between a break even and an excess of $2.5 million. We will see as we get closer to year end. So the green column represents where we'll be at with fund balance if we do break even for the year, the budget of $3.7 million deficit, and our projected ending fund balance next June of $16.4 million. So this chart is kind of a breakdown of what we just looked at with a 3-year projection out. So you can see we're in the leftmost column. This is the slide that would be a projection of break even this year. What this slide is looking to do is in the center in the green bar, this is showing our board policy and how we're meeting it or not meeting it when it comes to our unassigned fund balance needs to be at least 3% of the projected expenditures for the subsequent year. So you can see we were within that policy for this year, for next year, and the next year. However, with the current projections that are assumed to in this slide at a 0.675% assessment growth, we're falling short of that policy in the out year 3. However, if we would realize an excess of $2.5 million at the end of this year, you can see that injection of fund balance or injection of excess into that unassigned fund balance would get us within the board policy over the next 3 years. However, we're still showing structural deficits, which we will need to work on. So the next steps then, tonight, the proposed final budget is up for adoption. We still have the next month to watch any trends, get any new information, and possibly make adjustments for final budget adoption on June 21st. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. under approval of minutes, looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on May 3rd, 2021 as attached. Do I have a motion?
McCray. So moved, Case.
Mr. McCray first, Mr. Case second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 2.2, request approval of the proposed final budget for 2021-22 in the amount of $119,600,000 at the rate of 27.66 mils as per the resolution to the permanent minutes. Looking for a motion?
Martin,
Mr. Martin first, do you have a second?
Agree.
Mr. Negrini? Any discussion?
Mr. Hart,
Yes, sir.
I would just like to, I know Christine spent a lot of time thanking the team. I would like to thank her for her countless hours of work and for the professional presentation that she presented this evening, outlining our current budgetary state and anticipated budgetary state moving forward. Thank you, Ms. Schlossman, for all of your hard work, and you are a true asset to this district.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments? We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Treasury report, Mr. Martin.
Yes, Mr. President, I submit for approval tonight of the Treasury report, investment reports, the general and capital fund financial reports.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Case second.
Mr. Case, second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes,
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Payment of bills, Mr. Martin.
Mr. President, I submit for approval of the general fund payment of bills of $3,829,209.77. Out of the capital reserve, $150,492.06, and out of the 2019 A construction fund, $13,496.84.
We have a first. Do you have a second?
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Abstain.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes,
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Abstain.
7 yes, 0 no, 2 abstain.
Financial reports, Ms. Martin.
Mr. President, I submit for approval for the month of April, the cafeteria report, the child care and activity accounts for Southern Middle School, Wilson West Middle School, and the senior high.
Thank you. First, you have a second.
McCray.
Mr. McCray, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes,
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Fadley.
Thank you, President Hart. This evening, I present the superintendent's report inclusive of personnel and program recommendations. Before the board votes on this, I would like to acknowledge 3 retirements from our school district. Vicki Freese, who is the food service manager at Whitfield, effective June 4th of this year. She has proudly served the Wilson School District for 34 years. And two individuals from our bus driver transportation department, Richard Reeser and Scott Burke. They are corrections from a previous agenda, and I wanted to publicly acknowledge them for their service to the district. They will be retiring also on June 4th of 2021. In addition, I would like to draw the board's attention to under my report this evening, under the change of status, you will see Dr. Damiani and Chris Rada listed in that section with their transition from the assistant principal to their principal roles. We will bring them to a future meeting for them to make a couple of comments to the board regarding their change of status. You will also see in an additional agenda item in the HR section, our Director of Teaching and Learning, and we will ask him to come to a future board meeting to present himself to the board as well. With that, I ask for board consideration on the items listed.
Looking for a motion to approve the superintendent items 6.1 through 6.10 as presented.
Cocker,
Mrs. Cocker first, Mr. Case second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
7.1, as required by PDE, looking to request a nomination and election of the superintendent's administrative assistant to serve as the board secretary, July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2025. Looking for a motion.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. McCray and second,
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
7.2, request the nomination and election of the Assistant Superintendent's Administrative Assistant to serve as a substitute board secretary, July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2025. Looking for a motion.
So moved, Case.
Mr. Case first, do you have a second?
Casper,
Mrs. Casper, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? 7.3. Looking to request approval, the board secretary salary be set at $0. Looking for a motion.
So
Cocker.
moved, Case.
Mrs. Cocker first, Mr. Case second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Under 8.1, request approval to authorize the appointment of Dr. Yanji Kachufo, Director of Teaching and Learning at $130,000, effective date to be determined. 8.2, request approval of the additional 3 full-time RN positions at the elementary level at a rate to be determined based on experience and training for the 2021-2022 school year. 8.3, request approval of the revised job descriptions for the administrative assistant to the director of transportation as attached. 8.4, request approval of the following job descriptions as attached: benefits account assistant payroll specialist, personnel accountant, and senior accountant. 8.5, request approval for the following job descriptions and support staff salary range adjustments for the secondary food service managers, food service cooks, and secondary food service workers as attached. 8.6, request to approve the following changes to the food service operations manager job descriptions as attached. Looking for a motion to approve human resource items 8.1 through 8.6 as presented.
Casper,
Mrs. Casper first. Do you have a second?
Cocker,
Mrs. Cocker second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr.
I'm sorry,
Hart,
hold on.
can
Yes.
can Dr. Fadley take time to explain the food services changes that were addressed in the letters at the beginning of the meeting?
Yeah. Yes, I can, Dr. Kennedy. I would just make a comment that some of the information included in the communications was not completely accurate. There was some comments that indicated that there were no salary increases being recommended for our support staff employees. Just to clarify that piece, and we've spent some time today working with Ms. Ginn and Dr. Trickett and Mr. Hahn to develop communications to our food services staff. They will receive the same recommended 3% increase as the professional staff received, and that is included in this budget, as well as the administrative 3% increase, which will be the same as the teachers. So that is the first clarification that I would make. Second, we've spent a great deal of time since the hiring of our Director of Food Services, looking at our food service operation, trying to reduce the personnel cost as a result of reduced revenues over the course of the last year and a half to 2 years. As a result of that, we've taken opportunities as people have left the organization to consolidate based on Ms. Ginn's experience. Ms. Ginn did a fantastic job of presenting all of the changes that were going to be recommended to the board to our Human Resources Department. Keep in mind that the reduction of personnel at the secondary level has increased the job responsibility and job descriptions that we are looking to approve this evening. So not only has that passed its way through the HR committee, but it's also been communicated with the finance committee as well, and is in the best interest of the district financially moving forward. Now, part of the proposal that has been put together includes a transition and a phased approach to looking at how we restructure. So the first step in this process is at the secondary level. There is and will be additional analysis at the elementary level, and how we can do things efficiently to consolidate and perhaps do the same type of approach we've done with the secondary. But we want to see how it works at the secondary level before we jump and do it completely wholesale across the district. So I have reviewed this in my biweekly meetings with Ms. Ginn. We've had ongoing conversations regarding this reorganization and restructuring process, and it's part of the greater vision moving forward to try to get our food services department post-pandemic in a position where we're not losing money as an entity. So I will be also working with the administration, Dr. Kennedy, to have some additional conversations with our food service staff at the elementary level, in trying to further explain some of these types of things that are going on across our organization. Does that help?
I think so. I hate to see that split between the elementary and the secondary, and it always seems to be an issue in many different areas of paraprofessionals, and I just want to make sure that nobody's feelings are getting hurt, because as an elementary school teacher, the lunch ladies, they can make or break a kid's day,
Right.
or a teacher's day who forgot their lunch. And I look at Vicki Freeze, and gosh, she was there the entire time I was there, and she was just absolutely wonderful. And I would hope that all of our food service employees would want to stay 34 years with the district, including the elementary ones.
And I think the final piece that I would say is I want all of the individuals to know that we value them as employees. That's not ever been a question. It's we're trying to do our absolute best to reorganize and restructure so that we we have the capability financially to continue to sustain the employees that we currently have. So we'll be having more conversation, collaboration, and be working with those individuals who had some concerns to try to address their concerns and at least give them an opportunity to voice their concerns or ideas moving forward of how we can do things better.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy and Dr. Fadley. Under Human Resources, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion or comments?
So Dr. Faley, just to be clear, all food service workers are scheduled to get a 3% increase in the upcoming budget. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. All support staff we're projecting in the budget that was just shared with you to get a 3% pay increase.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
No.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
That's 8 yes, 1 no.
Under Student Services, 9.1, request approval of a service agreement with Dr. Richard Schillebeer to perform an independent evaluation. Motion? Looking for a motion?
Martin moves.
Mr. Martin first, do you have a second?
Kennedy?
Dr. Kennedy, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Operations, Mrs. Cocker?
10.1, request permission to purchase district classroom and office supplies through the BCIU bid from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. 10.2, request permission to purchase district art supplies through the BCIU bid from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. 10.3, request to grant permission to ratify the increase in the cost to purchase bleachers for the high school fields project from Stadium Solutions from a total cost of $57,565, inclusive of installation and delivery, to a total cost of $69,558.60, inclusive of installation, delivery, and bonding, to have them here for the 2021 graduation ceremony.
Looking for a motion to approve. Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve items 10.1 through 10.3 as presented.
McGreeny. So
Mr.
moved.
Greeny first. Do we have a second?
Case.
Kennedy?
Mr. Case, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Finance, request approval 11.1, request approval to award the following bids: elementary and secondary art supplies, elementary and secondary music equipment and supplies, secondary technology supplies, and fall athletic supplies. 11.2, request approval to accept the AFIG Refueling Infrastructure Projects Grant, $197,500 from the PADP, from Pennsylvania DEP for the Wilson School District Propane Infrastructure Initiative. 11.3, look for request to approve the budget transfers dated April 15th, 2021 through May 12th, 2021. Looking for a motion to approve 11.1 through 11.3 as presented.
Martin moves.
Mr. Martin first, do we have a second?
McGreeny second.
Mr. McGreeny second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under food and cafeteria, 12.1, request approval to advertise and solicit bids for the following food service equipment purchases, pending solicitor review and approval. New dish machine at Spring Ridge Elementary, new dish machine at Cornwall Terrace and Southern Middle School, and new serving line at Southern Middle School. Looking for a motion to approve 12.1.
Cocker,
Mrs. Cocker first. Do you have a second?
Kennedy,
Dr. Kennedy, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker,
yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under policies, 13.1, request to approve the final reading and adoption of the following revised policies. 150s, Title I comparabilities of services, which is a new policy. 800.1, school bus drivers and school commercial motor vehicle drivers, and 810.3, school vehicle drivers. 13, and we need a vote on that. Any comment? I'm sorry, we need it first.
Cocker,
Mrs. Cocker first. Do you have a second?
Kennedy,
Casper,
Dr. Kennedy, a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
yes.
Mrs. Cocker,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
13.2, second reading of the following revised policies. 113.5, confidentiality of special education information. 137.1, participation of homeschool students in district programs. 13.3, we have a first reading of the following new policy, 832, which is educational equity. Under miscellaneous, we have the enrollment report, which was attached, and committee reports. Perks Career and Technology Center, Mrs. Casper.
Yes, we did not meet. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 26th. No report.
Thank you. Wilson Equity Task Force, Mrs. Casper.
Yes, the task force met on May 5th, on Wednesday, May 5th in the high school library. Yeah, we continued our work in our 4 task groups. Our 4 task groups being the curriculum, policy and staffing, curriculum and professional development, policy, staffing, representation, and awareness activities and events. And each committee had an opportunity to report out some of the outcomes from their homework. One of the projects many of us are really excited for is the creation of a Wilson website dedicated to equity and inclusion. Dr. Kennedy shared with us a sample that she found, and Karen Troutman enthusiastically jumped on that. So thank you very much, and great teamwork. We also approved tonight the first reading of Wilson's equity and education policies. This is the district's first go around with an equity policy, so I'm really excited to be a part of that. Another project I'm really excited about, and it comes just in time for the creation of a website, is to create an equity task force logo. So if anybody has any suggestions, we're kind of still open for that. Finally, we had a lively discussion about how issues around poverty intersect with our quest to produce more equity in our district. And I think this discussion strikes at a critical time as we are all experiencing the fallout of the pandemic, particularly from an economic standpoint. So I'm sure these conversations will continue to happen as we navigate our district to a more equitable place. So our next very tentative meeting will be scheduled for June 2nd. And that's my report.
Great, thank you. 13.3, Berks County IU, Dr. Kennedy.
Yes, the curriculum committee and neither the curriculum committee nor the IU has met since our last meeting, so I have no report there. Our next curriculum meeting is Wednesday, May 26th.
Thank you. Berks CIT, Mr. Schlossman.
I have no report tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. Extracurricular, Mrs. Cocker.
Thank you, President Hart. The extracurricular committee met last Monday, May 10th at noon. We discussed briefly just all of the summer camps and different groups that will be starting over the summer. And then we also have some upcoming events before we get to that. On Tuesday, May 18th, we have the concert band concert at 7 p.m. in the Gursky Stadium. On Monday, May 24th, we have the Select Treble concert at 7 p.m. at the High School Auditorium. And Tuesday, May 25th, we have the concert choir concert, 8 p.m., also in Gursky Stadium. And in the athletics, on the athletic side, we have a couple teams that are county champions. So we have our boys lacrosse, boys volleyball, and both boys and girls track and field. The track and field teams both have a record of 5-0. So a very successful spring season. Congratulations. And I think on all areas of extracurriculars, we're feeling that everything's kind of coming to a wrapping up point in the year. And I just want to congratulate all of the student athletes and student participants for music, as well as our theater group, for all of the hard work that they've put into this year, and all of the creativity that has come along with it to have successful seasons. Thanks.
Thank you. Facilities, Mr. Negrini.
No report.
Finance Committee, Mr. Martin.
Just want to thank everyone for the hard work and passing the budget. I'm not really excited about it. I'm hoping we can, trim it in the future, but as of now, that's the best we can do.
Thank you. Legislative, Mr. Martin.
Yes, there's a lot of activity this week. The Senate passed quite a few bills. The House was not in session, but one that's really a good concern, I think, to all school districts was the one that extended for 1 year, the ability of a parent to have their son or daughter repeat a grade. And I think one that's probably a bit more costly to all school districts would be the exception for, I'm sorry, that the age out for special education was 21, and that's going to be increased 1 year to 22 years of age. So that could cost districts money. I don't have a handle on that, what that would be, but that could be significant. The other one about the kids repeating is probably can be absorbed through normal processes within the school, but the special education could be an issue.
Thank you. Human Resources? Sorry, Mr. Martin. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Human Resources? No report. Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman.
Sure, thank you. Just wanted to give a shout out. The annual What's So Cool About Manufacturing video contest just happened, and this contest every year excites students to explore cool manufacturing careers and produce profiles of companies throughout PA. Teams of students and teacher coaches receive camera equipment, software, and professional guidance as they learn to script, record, and edit their video stories. And the objective is to change students' perceptions about manufacturing careers. So this is a program, both of our middle schools participate in this contest each year. And this year, we're excited to announce that Wilson West Middle School earned the Outstanding Creative Award in the Berks Google contest. So congratulations to all the students that participated, and as well as their teacher advisors who helped them through that process. It's a great program. We also wanted to announce that we're excited to be able to offer the Wilson Summer Learning Camp program free to any students in the Wilson School District entering 1st through 5th grades for the 2021-2022 school year. This camp is going to be offered to continue academic opportunities and help diminish the summer while having fun in a safe outdoor environment. Instructions provided by certified Wilson teachers and the camps will incorporate hands-on learning activities that will strengthen language arts, reading, math, science, and social studies skills. This is a program we've promoted already through the Bulldog Blitz. It's posted on the homepage of our website. We'll be sharing it obviously through our elementary schools as well as through social media. Just wanted to let the community know about that. And then finally, this is the last board meeting before graduation for the class of 2021. So we wanted to share with our community that we will once again be celebrating our graduating class with a community parade and fireworks display. The parade will follow the same route as last year and will begin at 5:30 p.m. on Friday, June 4th. And graduation has a rain date of June 5th. The students are going to make their way to Gursky Stadium for the ceremony. Each graduate's receiving tickets to the event, but it will also be live streamed for the community to watch. Following the ceremony, we'll have a fireworks display that will begin at approximately 9 p.m. And we have developed a custom website for the class of 2021 events, and you can find a link to that website on the homepage of the high school website. So we are super excited to celebrate the class of 2021. Certainly, it's been a most unique senior year for these graduates, but we are extremely excited that we can celebrate with them and give them just an awesome, awesome graduation. So again, thank you to everyone who's been working so hard to make the end of their senior year so special.
Thank you. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
I have no report other than the end of the year WEF meeting and breakfast will be next Friday, May 28th.
Thank you. Technology, Mr. Schneider.
We haven't met since our last meeting, so I have nothing to report. Our next meeting is on June the 7th.
Great, thank you. Student Outreach, Mr. Johnny Clark.
Thank you, Mrs. Cocker, for recognizing all of the athletic teams and the music ensembles. Mini-thon had their 12-hour event last Saturday. We raised money for the Four Diamonds Foundation, which is a foundation that helps families battling pediatric cancer. We are proud to announce that the Wilson High School Mini-thon was able to raise $38,438.42. Thank you to everyone who donated and supported the club. And to the board, I cannot thank you enough for allowing us to have these events. Thank you to administration, our coaches and advisors for all of their hard work this year and having these events. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your service. Mr. Maravich.
No report.
Other business? We do not have any public agenda. Hold on, we do not have any participation on non-agenda items. Other board business?
Yes, I do have some other business, and in the opening, and John Moravich mentioned that we were doing this virtual meeting because of a board member refusing to wear their mask. And I want to mention to the public that is me. The reason why I was not going to wear the mask is pretty simple. It was going to be symbolic to bring attention to the fact that school-age children are facing suicide, increased drug use, mental illness, and many other items that are too numerous to mention. However, this turned personal for me when I was told at the extracurricular meeting that I would be removed and arrested by Spring Township Police by the chairperson. So that was something that I was looking to resolve tonight. I believe in civil disobedience when things are not correct. I was ready to pay those consequences to be removed if that was necessary. But all these things, it's not about what's right or wrong. It's about trying to help our students. My objective is to help the students. They should be in school. They should not be subject to drug abuse. They should not be subject to suicides. They should not be subject to mental anguish that we have caused by opening school, closing school, this and that, and things of that nature. I do know, to my knowledge, there's no vaccine for suicides. There's no vaccine for drug abuse, and there's no vaccines for mental anguish that our students are facing. It's time to put substance over form. We've got a situation here where we know our students are being impacted by these, but we're stuck and obsessed with a rule, a regulation that's outdated and should have been removed several weeks ago. If you recall, I wanted school to come back to session April 1st. I spoke to Richard about that. That did not come to pass. I know that we had a suicide between now and then. I don't know if COVID affected that, and I can't even begin to answer that question. But I do know is holding our students accountable for something we have no control over. They're at least impacted by the virus, but they're impacted the most by what I just mentioned. I don't appreciate tonight. I look forward to the school letting the parents know that we will commit ourselves to opening school on time, without restrictions, without closings. It's imperative that our students get back to normalcy, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Any other comments? Looking for motion to adjourn?
Snyder, so moved.
Mr. Schneider first, do you have a second?
Second Case.
Mr. Case, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.